The date, it's one of those dates that'll live in infamy, 8/8/08. The company had a devastating fire late in the Friday evening. Interestingly, I didn't hear about it until the next day because I had left my cell phone in the truck and went out and got it and had kind of listened to some of the messages. I noticed I had about 6 or 7 messages on there and finally started listening to them, and by the time I got to the second one and I realized that Mark was actually leaving me a message and telling me about the fact that the building had burnt down, my wife basically said it was the fastest she'd ever seen me run out of the house to go to work.
On August the 8th of 2008, we experienced a fire here at our facility, which has been on this site for nearly 60 years, which burned about 50,000 square feet of our operation to the ground. Affected our ability to make virtually every product that we build in this company and shut us down for several months while we tried to develop a game plan to get back to work and be of service to our customers.
The entire structure that had housed all of the equipment, all the materials that we had moved from our facility in Virginia, a number of new investments in wind tunnels, other kinds of diagnostic and test and assembly equipment, all completely gone. A very, very painful and shocking experience.
I got a phone call from our alarm service at about 11:30 on that Friday night, and at first didn't take it all that serious because we'd had a number of false alarms, smoke alarm, things go on here. So I said, well, I'll get down there as soon as I can. And they said, well, you don't understand, I'm telling you it's actually on fire. I had to weave through the traffic. It had already been shut off. There were already 3 or 4 trucks fully engaged in fighting the fire at that time. The only person I called right away was our new CEO, who had been on the job about 4 months, and let him know that we had a pretty devastating fire going on. I couldn't reach him. I had to leave a message. To my knowledge, he still has that message on his phone. The best theory is that it was an electrical fire. This was a fairly old building. It was the original factory that we had built in 1950s, and some of the wiring in there, it is believed, caught flame back in the area where we did anodizing. So there were several 200-gallon tanks of various fluids and acids and so forth back there, and I guess it didn't take much to accelerate it. It also was a wood structure in the roof, so it moved along pretty quickly. The way the people found out, for the most part, was on the news. In fact, that night there were many of them gathered across the street from the building watching, and some of them crying and being pretty emotional. Many of our employees have been with us an awful long time, so this is a very special place to a lot of people. For me, I've been with the company 20 years, so I've spent a lot of time in and around these buildings here on this site, and that one is where I started. This building wasn't even in place when I started here, so that building represented really the founder's dream when he started this company, a wonderful guy. My first thought was, how are we going to recover from this? How are we going to take care of these customers that are counting on us?
Since the early days of powered flight, pilots have struggled with landing in crosswinds. In fact, crosswinds and wind gusts cause more landing accidents than fog, thunderstorms, and icing combined. That's where the Redbird X-Wind SE comes in. By placing pilots in gusty crosswind conditions for extended periods of time, the X-Wind SE gives instructors all the time they need to teach the pilot the proper techniques for landing in crosswind conditions. For more information on Redbird X-Wind SE and Redbird's entire line of flight training devices, visit www.redbirdflightsimulation.com.
We gathered up our pens and pads of paper, and we headed over to one of the local restaurants here and asked the waitress to bring us over a bunch of pots of coffee, and we got the pads out and basically just started going through all the things we needed to worry about. Customers, how are we going to contact the customers? What did we need to tell them, make them aware of? Suppliers, employees, folks in the area that would be affected by this, obviously the insurance company, etc. Within a couple of hours, we actually had a reasonably good plan of action to come back together. I think the team, although in a very difficult spot, basically felt like, you know what, we can get our arms around this, and we're gonna fight to bring the company back. Very quickly after that, we started, reaching out to the customers, etc. on Monday morning. Basically, the response was, well, you need to let us know what's going on. What do you think the impact is? When do you think you'll be able to get back to us with a plan? What can we do to help? So within a few days, we had people contacted, a lot of quick response and a lot of concern, obviously, on the part of the customers about what we were going to be able to do is supply them parts for their airplanes.
Monday morning, we were open to work, and I had prepared myself to be outside and greet people as they came in to help them know that it was going to be okay. To my surprise, I must not have had the right look on my face of comforting. I must have looked worried because more of them were hugging me and telling me it was going to be okay, because that's the kind of company this is. We had to decide, what do we focus on first? We have a pretty large amount of military business that we do here. That was going to get a lot of focus. And how do we respond to that, get ourselves back up into the kinds of things that are primary vehicles to defend our country? And then also, we were about to impact the finances of every company that's counted on us. And we wanted to try and minimize that as best we could. So we took a look at what was in this building and inventory. What are we having work in process that we can still get out that isn't impacted by that? So we started working through some of those things. And then we started looking at partnering with people that had the same kinds of capabilities as us. And in some cases, competitor, which was pretty fascinating to make that phone call. And one of the fellas that I talked to, he initiated the phone call and told me, he says, "My God, Mark, I can't believe it. Tell me what I can do to help." And I said, "You know, there is something you can do to help." And I told him what it was. And I think within 2 days, I had a FedEx envelope with that in it, that information in it. And it was basically just recovering some data kind of things that he would need to start over again. And he was right on the spot. And that's a competitor. And now a friend.
We did get some money from the insurance company, but we also found out pretty quickly that it wasn't going to be nearly enough to help us recover. And then what we started to do was we came up with the concept of not only reaching out to our customers for help, but specifically asking them if they could pay us the money ahead of time that they had actually already ordered product for. And to our, I would say, surprise, because the industry is, I think, quite a tight-knit industry. I think folks that have been in aerospace and defense tend to stay in this industry a long time, and folks recognize that sometimes things happen that you've got to pull together and work on. So as we started to reach out to customers and we presented them with our situation, started to describe what our recovery plan was going to be, we reached out to them and said, you know, we'd like you to pay us ahead of time for what's in the backlog, and we're going to use that money to recover. And not only are we going to recover, but we're going to be an even better supplier going forward.
We were able to get a little over $5 million of that kind of support. There were others that lended assistance in parts, believe it or not, from their inventory, like Learjet, who allowed us to utilize parts to service other of their competitors to make things happen for them if they had surplus. These are people that love this business and cared enough, you know, to reach out and do things that didn't maybe make business sense in a cutthroat sense, but certainly make sense in a humanitarian way. And it was really a very humbling and inspiring kind of time for us to go through that. We had a period of time right after they'd given us that money where there was a pretty big valley of no revenue coming in, so we had to be very thoughtful stewards of that money. And I'm just really proud of the work that everybody did here to make sure that we honored that we got the parts back to them, that we resolved that issue, and that their risk was well worth it.
One of my favorite, I think, parts of that process was we had a gentleman who was the VP of supply chain at Cessna came in. And we went through the presentation with him about what we were going to do, not only to recover the company, but to be that increasingly better supplier in terms of you know, on-time delivery, quality, performance, etc. And at the end of that, basically he got up, shook my hand, and he said, "You know what?" He said, "I believe in you guys. I know you can do it." He said, "My only question that I've got to go back and talk to our financial people about is, can I get you the money in one check or three?" So he went back, and sure enough, they sent us the money pretty quickly. And I got to tell you, when you get that kind of confidence, that kind of response from your customers, you just want to make it happen.
I think that more than anything, the response that we got from our customers and the challenge that was in front of us was kind of, you know, inspiring to not want to let anybody down. And once they do something like that, how do you not You know, how do you not be every service you can to a company like that? I mean, that's a lifetime thing as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I certainly won't forget it within my career.
Redbird Flight Simulations is dedicated to revolutionizing flight training by designing, manufacturing, and delivering affordable and innovative flight training technologies. Each Redbird device is designed to enhance the training experience for pilots of all levels, from student to ATP. Redbird is quickly becoming the industry standard for flight training. Since Redbird introduced its revolutionary FMX in 2007, colleges, universities, and flight training operations around the world have integrated Redbird products into their curriculum. It's time to discover what Redbird can do for you. Join the migration.
Probably the most powerful aspect of it was just the team coming together. 4 to 5 months of very significant effort till we got to the point that we were actually shipping to the level that we could be self-sustaining, at least financially at that point. The company, we could get back onto the black on a monthly basis. Came very close, honestly, to going to bankruptcy. Actually had consulted with our attorneys about doing that. You know, as a public company, we wanted to make sure that we were covering all the bases for our shareholders, and just looked at those different options. But at the end of the day, we felt like we could make it happen, and the team made it happen.
You know, the kind of things that we make here, you can't go down to, you know, any store and buy the kinds of equipment that we use to test these things with. So that was a pretty big undertaking in itself. You also have to consider the fact this company's been around so long that we have products that date way back. So the ability to duplicate some of those things, that many of those parts might be obsolete in a test environment. So, you know, we had to use the brain power of people, some of which had left here years ago and retired, and tried to reach out to them and see what they knew. So yeah, rebuilding the test equipment was probably the biggest thing.
As much as this was a significant challenge and a tragedy in a number of ways, it also became an opportunity, and I think people sensed it was a real opportunity to build on the kinds of things that we wanted to do as a company here. We needed to be more consistent from an operational standpoint, from a financial standpoint, and we needed to start getting the company to grow more effectively. And so despite the challenges, it was also an opportunity for us to really start to instill the kinds of culture and practices and systems that we needed to do here to get ourselves much more consistent and capable as the kind of supplier that our customers expect.
This company has been through a lot of things, and this industry's been through a lot of things. And we just seem to be able to keep getting up and dusting ourselves off and figuring it out, moving forward, and doing a better job the next time around. One of the really good things about something that tragic happening is you get a chance to start over again in a different way. And a company this old, of course, there were a lot of things that we were doing that probably didn't make sense, but they were in place for 30 years and you just kept going. And as you look at it and say, okay, now we've got to start over. Would we do it that way again? In some cases, yes, and in some cases, no. And in the cases that were no, I think it made us a much better company, a much leaner operation. You know, you do the things that are really important to your core of work, and then you reach out to others that can do some of the things that you might have been doing in-house, and have some new partners, you know, develop some new relationships in this business that help you build a better product, maybe faster, maybe more efficient.
Well, I think in mid-2008, I would say that the company was both faltering and struggling, and the fire just simply almost put us under beyond that. I think by the time we've gotten to where we are now, I think we're a company that is far more reliable, performing. I think we can be counted on much more effectively by our customers to do not only deliver on production, but new product developments. We've won a number of contracts over the last couple of years to help a number of our customers develop new products. And I think that they've done that because they recognized that improvement in terms of reliability, consistency, performance, and the development of a more innovative culture in terms of developing new products. If there's one thing this industry has shown, it's got the capability to be able to take on lots of challenges. I mean, look at the history of aerospace, Apollo, you know, manned flight, all the things that we do here. It's a great opportunity to continue to show that heritage has really strengthened us to be a pioneering kind of an organization, kind of an industry going forward.